Good afternoon. I am Councillor Richard Darrington, the Chairman of the committee, and I would like to welcome you all to the meeting of the Children's and Family Select Committee that is being broadcast live and recorded for publication. Agenda item number 1, Chairman and Vice Chairman appointments. To note the appointment of full council on May the 14th, 2026 of myself, Richard Darrington, as Chairman, and Councillor Jan Gould as Vice Chairman of the Children's and Family Select Committee for the 2026-2027 municipal year. Agenda item number 2, committee membership. To note the membership for the committee for 2026-2027 municipal year as follows: Councillor Brown, Councillor Butler, Councillor Cullen, Councillor Darrington, Councillor Gould, Councillor Mason, Councillor McCormack, Councillor Pepper, Councillor Rich, Councillor Saddington, Councillor Smith. Education representatives, Nigel Frith and James McGeachie. May I take this opportunity to welcome our new members. I'm sure your vast wealth of experience will only enhance this committee. Item number 3, minutes. To ask the committee to approve the minutes with a show of hands, please. Lovely. Thank you very much. Item number 4, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. We have received apologies from Councillor Jan Gould for other reasons and has been substituted today by Councillor Jim Burnett. We also received apologies from Councillor David Wright for other reasons, and we've received apologies from Nigel Frith. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Just at this point, I'll say that if we haven't finished the meeting by 3 p.m, I will have to leave at 3 p.m. I'm just telling you that at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 5, declarations of interest. If any council or officer has any interest in any matter on the agenda, you should declare it now. Please raise your hands now and declare. If you have an interest to declare. If you have an interest to declare, you should state what type of interest and give brief details, please. All good. Okay, moving on then. Item number 6, School Sustainability Strategy 2024-2029. Can I invite Rory Green, Cabinet Member for Children's and Family, to introduce the report, please?
Sorry, Chair, the microphone's gone off. Can I go that one, please? No, it's definitely not working. That's better. Can everyone hear me all right? I'm pleased to introduce this item. I'm quite pleased to see that this took place in our local authority as a more proactive measure to try and identify and target those small schools. I grew up in a rural village school myself, a primary school, and have fond memories, and I value those bonds of that close-knit nurture, because I've taught in school based at 13 cohort, whereas these schools are vital to have that running up 5, 10, 15 classrooms. So yeah, I think it's wonderful that the council provide this sustainability project for the next 4 years, because it's a 5-year project. So I'm going to pass you over to the Karen Newman. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, councillors, you've all had the report that will have given you kind of the statistics about how many schools we have, how many are small schools, and the area maps, so that you can see for your own districts how many small schools you have. There's a significant number of our children who attend local authority small schools and small schools, 12% in our small schools, 6% of those in our small schools. Most of our small schools are actually across the county in rural areas, so places like Bassett will have the highest number of those small schools. Some of our small schools will be Pinfield schools, and you might find those more in the town areas, separate from junior schools where numbers are low. But the ones who probably play that biggest role within their community are the small rural schools, because they're not only schools that educate children, but they form part of the village life as well. So they have that kind of dual role if they're set in rural areas. When the strategy began, the purpose of writing it was because we'd had a number of small schools close. And there is a DFE presumption that we will work hard to make sure that small schools survive, if at all possible. And Nottinghamshire had to close not that long ago, Aaron Madison. I was part of that process, as were some people around this table. And it's really distressing for the families whose children then can't go to school in the village. And it was very distressing for that village not to have access to that school building and the land as well. So that prompted us to say, how could we support our small schools to really think about the things that they can do to make them sustainable? And the small school strategy emphasised to governors of small schools that they weren't in a safe place. Even if they had good numbers at the time and their money was okay, if something goes wrong for a small school, it can tumble really quickly. So the purpose of the strategy was to say to governors of small schools, please think about this ahead of time. Don't wait till something starts going wrong. Think about how you can work more effectively with other schools around you, whether that be just working in a kind of unofficial collaboration, or whether you want to make that into a more kind of permanent federation amalgamation. But think about how you can work with other schools around you to save money and make things better for your children. So from that, we've got 15 local authority main schools in federations and collaboration arrangements. Some of those involve more than one, so there's 3 schools sharing an executive head teacher. Key advantages of those are that they're sharing costs and they're sharing responsibilities and knowledge. Because if you have a school with a lot of staff, then you have your English lead, your maths lead, your RE lead, your whoever, geography lead. If it's a small school, it's actually often the same teacher that's doing all those pieces of school improvement. If you work in a collaboration, you can share those responsibilities out. So that specialism and that focus is still there. Collaborations are probably the easiest first step for schools, because it doesn't mean you amalgamate governing bodies, it doesn't mean you're amalgamating head teachers, it means you're doing that working together piece. So in terms of making progress, we've probably made more progress encouraging schools to collaborate than the others at this point in time. The other side to the strategy was what we knew about what was happening for our small schools. And within the pack of papers as an appendix, you've got this one that shows you the monitoring sheet that we've now developed here for how officers work together to look at what's happening for our small schools. Because finance obviously monitor their finance, HR look at their structures, their leadership, what that looks like. Our school improvement team look at the quality of education being provided to the children, and our governing body service look at the strength of the governing body and the effectiveness of the governing body. What this method of monitoring through the dashboard has done has brought those 4 key teams together. So rather than finance it in a corner knowing that a school budget was starting to struggle, actually those 4 key teams will be cited on there's a problem with finance, or there's a problem with leadership, or actually the teaching and learning isn't achieving the required grades. And those teams can then work together to decide which are our key concern small schools, and it enables them to take more effective action. One of the suggestions around small schools is obviously to consider academisation. That over this 2 years has proved a challenge for small schools that want to find an academy partner, because our academy trusts we understand why, but when they do their due diligence about finance and they see the risks that will come with small school, they're often very reluctant. And that's a journey that we've just been through with Cornton Dean Hall Primary, where we tried very hard to find an academy partner, thought we'd found one at one point, and then that had to be cancelled. But once the school is really not in a good financial position, it's not something an academy trust wants to take on, because it would be a risk to that academy trust. How we then move forward as we academise our schools, and we'll be aware that we've been gradually academising schools across Saxonshire for quite some time now. There will be small schools that academy trusts aren't going to want, so we'll need to work together with the DFE as well as locally to think about what that looks like in the future. From our analysis this year, we've got 5 schools that we're particularly concerned about. I haven't named them, and I hope you'll go with me on that, because these are schools that are now working really, really hard to raise their status, raise their profile and secure more pupils. But what we did want to share with you was there's quite different reasons for some of those. So one of those is a school that in terms of pupils numbers is flourishing, gradually raising the numbers, outcomes are good, Ofsted is happy, but they have a historic deficit budget. And they've had that deficit budget now for 3 years. And we shouldn't really keep rolling on with a school with a deficit budget that you can't see a way to pay off. If we were to close that school now, that deficit is something the local authority has to pay. So one conundrum about rescuing small schools is you're not allowed to give them any extra money to help them over a lean period. There is no way of saying, here you are, we'll solve that for you. But if you close them and they have a massive deficit, then we have to pay the deficit. So I was going to say, but that's the financial regulations and how they apply. So we can't bail them out, but this particular school has this historic significant deficit. And although it's now got its current head above water, there isn't an easy way for the deficit to be paid off. So that one is under monitoring through finance and for finance reasons, where we've got other schools where it's literally just how low the numbers have fallen, because they're in villages where at the moment there aren't any small children, and those numbers have fallen to a point that, despite the fact they've spent the last 3 years getting themselves back to a sustainable budget, and they've just had a very good Ofsted outcome, they're not going to have the pupils to make them sustainable, I think, in the future. So 5 schools there being really closely monitored, with teams doing everything they can to find a way forward. But what I would say is that we know at the moment that primary school numbers are low. Numbers in our infant level are low, and that will move into the junior sector shortly. So we are going to see over the next few years more schools with lower numbers at primary level than we have for some time. That will change in the end. These things always flux up and down, but we're just coming into a point where schools will be struggling with no numbers. So there'll be more small schools. Thank you.
Lovely. Has anybody got anything else to add? No. Okay. Can I move the recommendations and seek a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Lovely. Thank you very much. I'm now going to throw the debate to the floor, and I'm going to ask the first question, if that's okay. So, in light of what you've just said, at some stage, as a county council, the DFE's got to stand up with diminishing numbers in pupil places over the next 5 years. County council can't be held responsible for these shortfalls. So at some stage, we've got to lobby government to get additional funding, because it can't, the burden can't always fall back on county council, can it? Okay, Councillor Saddington.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Karen, for that report. I have to say, I thought this, for a scrutiny committee, this report was extremely thin. And I think it would have, I'm speaking as a member, I certainly would have helped me to have had that information that you've just given in this pack for us to absorb before the meeting today. Because what you've said is quite important, and what the meeting's all about. It's evident to what I already know that the rural schools suffer. And once the news gets out that the school is suffering, then we know from Deanhole and Former Manners School, both of which I know of, the children are removed because there's a panic. And the parents think, we don't want the school to close, we're going to move our children now at the age of 7 rather than have to move them at 9. So I think this is something that the council should be looking at. And you say that there are 5 schools under threat here. Okay, there's 5 schools. But for us as a scrutiny committee, not to know where they are, I find quite surprising, because we are here to scrutinise. We can't scrutinise if we don't have information on something. But also, it's become evident to me that there are maps here which presumably give an indication of the schools under threat. But the members don't know, or do they? I know one member who didn't know his school was under threat. I didn't know when Former Manners Sutton was under threat, and I know Councillor Bruce Lawton didn't know that Deanhole Primary was under threat. Now, we have to work with the residents who come to say, is our school closing? And if we don't know that the school's in danger, then how do we answer that question? That can only add to the anxiety the parents have. So I'm surprised this agenda is so thin. I would have liked that information in this pack so we could have absorbed it before now, because it was important information. And it's understandable, and I know this from Deanhole School at Cornton. The academies don't want the schools by the time they signal that they're in trouble. Surely that should happen from the council as you see this coming, to start negotiating, rather in the case of Deanhole, the negotiations didn't start until it was past the point of no return. And by that time, the academies truly don't want them. One can understand why. So I think there are a few problems that should be addressed. But thank you for your briefing.
Lovely, thank you, Councillor. Can I bring in Dr. Green, please?
Thank you very much, Councillor Saddington. So just to share that the presentation is a summary of the key information provided in the pack, and you're really talking about the sensitivities of this work, which you are correct. There's a lot of emotion involved in these small schools, and the leaders of the schools and the communities, the parents and the young people, as Rory shared, are passionate about these schools. So just to give you some assurance, the ward members can know the names of the schools, and we will contact them and include them in this work. And if those ward members want to know any more detail about the specific schools, we can do. In this public forum, we want to protect the sensitivity of this work, because as this information is being shared publicly, anything that would go against the head teacher's work to increase attendance at that schools would be difficult. If there's any specific bits of information as well, happy to provide them.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Cullen.
Councillor, is in relation to that question? All right, apologies.
Councillor Green.
Sorry, I should have had my hand up soon. I was just listening. Apologies. Yeah, I think that's a really good point about the presentation. Because sometimes people have different learning styles about how they interpret information. So we apologise about maybe that could have gone out sooner for you. So that's a valid point. And you made a really good point about when people should know and how much people should know. And I think again, I agree with the sentiment. I think what can happen sometimes in politics particularly is that people will be told certain information, and it's no finger point in this room also, I'm just talking about the climate nationally, is you'll have sensitive information and it can be used in a certain way for certain agendas. I'm not saying you would, Councillor Saddington, because I've worked with you, but I think it's usually on a needs to know. This is the perfect forum to talk about what's going on in the county, how many are there, but just try to picture, I think, potentially the hysteria and the fear that can come in parents, that come in school staff, local communities, and that's just not helpful. It's not helpful in trying to fix the issue. Consultation directly through a local member, absolutely, but I think sometimes in life we're in a technocratic age where everyone wants to know a lot. I get that. I think this is quite sensitive information. Sometimes it can go off the wrong hand and actually create more workload for the head teachers, the school itself, in trying to manage expectations and inquiries, when actually that just distracts them from their work. So that would be my point on that. So I do agree with it. I think there's sort of a lens to it as well, and that matters, if that makes sense.
If I can just come back on that, I can take the point, but rumours are the worst thing that can ever happen. And somehow or another, through social media today, the rumour gets moving very fast.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Cullen.
My turn now. First of all, just Councillor Green, and I'm agreeing with Councillor Saddington on this. We're a scrutiny committee. We're not just a little discussion shop where we can get together and have a little discussion. We're a scrutiny committee. Our job is to hold you to account, to make sure things are being done properly. So in order to do that, we need the right information. And I will say, I absolutely agree. We are live streamed. We're on TV here. Anybody can watch this, and this is not the place to be naming those schools. But I've been a councillor for a long time, and I know that it's perfectly possible to go into closed session to have that discussion. And all of the experienced councillors here understand that things that are discussed in closed session are secret and cannot be then put on social media and discussed outside that session. So it would have been possible to arrange for that as part of this meeting. I didn't get my papers in advance of this meeting. The postman didn't bring them. But nevertheless, I got them about an hour ago, so I've only had a chance to look at it briefly. But I do notice that there's two small schools, and I'm not in a rural area, I'm in an urban area. But on this map here, there's two small schools in my ward. And actually, they don't look that small to me. And then I was looking through the papers and thinking, what is a small school then? How many pupils makes a small school? But I couldn't find it. It might be in there. I just didn't have the opportunity to find it. So I'd like to know what does constitute a small school. And also, at the moment, we're completely oversubscribed in our senior schools. We're having a real problem getting senior schools places for new people that move into the area, whether they move into the area from other parts of England or from abroad. In my particular ward, we've got a lot of people coming from Hong Kong, and our senior schools are massively oversubscribed. But the thing is, our primary schools are not. They're undersubscribed at the moment. But one of the things that is said to me constantly is, with the huge amount of house building that's happening all across the county, everywhere, and in rural areas, hundreds of new houses. Some of those houses, many of those houses, might be families with 2 or 3 children. So if we put some of our schools at risk, we might find that there aren't enough school places for primary just in a few years' time. I think it's extremely important to make sure that village schools and schools, small schools in urban areas don't close. There's, in my experience, children, particularly primary age children, being able to be educated in smaller schools is really beneficial to them, And I thought for a long time that class sizes are too big in all schools, and that children, you know, if you could afford to pay for your children to go to school, you wouldn't pay for them to go into a school where the class sizes were 30 or more children. You wouldn't spend the money. I'm not, if you won't surprise you, because you all know my politics, I'm not in favour of academies. So it actually cheers me up to know that academies won't take these schools on. I hope they don't, and I hope that the local authority maintains these schools, and we take very, very seriously the need to make sure that we don't just think of the here and now. We're always thinking about there's no money for this right now. we think about what's best for our children and what might the future hold when we've got thousands and thousands and thousands of new family homes built in the area. That's my view on it.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have any response?
I'll just come in to answer, thank you for your comment. I'll just come in to answer your question about small school. So less than 150 students.
Okay.
And I'll just draw your attention that we've got 43 of those schools in Nottinghamshire. But of those, 26 have less than 100, 6 have less than 50. So we have 6 very small schools.
Thank you. Councillor Butler, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of questions have been covered. You just answered the query I had is how do we define a small school? The report didn't say that, and the report, I'm sorry to say, is it's not detailed enough for what we're here to do. We are, as colleagues have said, we are a scrutiny committee, and we need to be taken seriously. So I just need to make that point. We're not here just to talk about things. Now, I'm a bit confused with a couple of things on here. On the one hand, we've heard that small schools are not going to be or unlikely to be taken on by an academy, which is the way forward. But then I was looking at the maps here, and I'm not going to name schools because, frankly, even looking at these maps, I fear will cause fear and panic amongst any members of the public who are reading this just by seeing a school name on here. People are going to think, oh my word, is my school going to close? No, I know that's not the case, and you know, but I don't think we've made a very good point of explaining that in the report. But when I look in sort of being parochial, and again, I'm not going to name the schools, there's one listed here, which I know is absolutely chock-a-block full, and has recently become part of an academy chain, and another one has been part of an academy already for the last 2 or 3 years. So I'm actually quite surprised to see it even appearing on this report, when certainly my local knowledge is that these schools are absolutely thriving, and indeed one of them is turning pupils away because so many people want to go to it. So I think we need a bit more clarity on that. And also paragraph, just a bit more clarification in paragraph, where was it, where I found it, I've lost it, oh dear. Yes, we're talking about historical, paragraph 17. We've said that, well, you just said there are 5, I think, that are considered as vulnerable at the moment. How does that compare to perhaps the previous version of this report? Has that number gone up or has it gone down? Thank you.
That's a really valid point. Thank you for your assessment as well, Councillor Butler. I think, not to patronise, which means sincerely, so this is the first ever report, this is a 5-year plan, and we're just past the first year, if that makes sense. So that identification metric wouldn't have been about before set time, if that makes sense. It's the first year, so it'd be hard to compare the data because said strategy wasn't in place, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to sideskip from the answer, but
that's fine, that's the explanation.
So thank you for all your points made.
But do you get my point about perhaps the law of unintended consequences on this? That this is a public report, anyone can read it either on the internet or in the hard copies, and people being naturally human reactions, oh my word, my school's on here, what's going to happen? Is there a danger you're making a rod for your own backs on this?
I'd say there's a sweet spot potentially in its infancy, and we're doing our best to find that and identify it. The other opposite side of the scale would be the rightful points that Councillor Saddington made, which is what we should know is scrutiny. They need to know, we need to tell residents. So
No,
I think there's
excuse me, I didn't say we need to tell residents.
at
I
some
said
point
we-
we've got concern
No,
about-
I said we need to be aware so we can answer any residents'
Yeah.
questions and concerns. That doesn't mean tell them. It means try and reassure them.
Okay, sorry, I missed the exact point there. Apologies. So there is a point where there's a holding space of how you take this and which position you take. So that would be my point in that. I think it's I wouldn't say the word extreme, so there's two ways of doing it. There's a middle balance in it somewhere. So yeah, it's in his first year.
Just to come back to some of your other points, Councillor, you'll note the title of the report, the Small School Sustainability Strategy. So as a council, we're committed to the sustainability of these schools. And you're really correct to point out that some of these schools are thriving and flourishing and turning students away. So we just want to clarify that just by being a small school, there's not necessarily a challenge. And you'll see in the report some of the specific details of the things that do pose a challenge for our schools, as Karen and the team have laid out, where we do have falling numbers and financial challenges. And as I said, we can brief our board members on that. But I think it's also helpful to understand this in a national context. And in other areas, very similar to ourselves in terms of geography and demographic, we're seeing similar challenges, particularly for small rural schools. So what we're doing is working with regional partners and speaking regularly to the Department of Education about, going back to your point, Chair, what is the national support for our schools in these situations. And we're really trying to be creative about joining up with partnerships and collaborations and federations, etc. So I think we welcome all of your support for the future of these schools. And I'll just praise the work of the team who are working really closely to have a strategy around these. I think as well we will want to come back to this scrutiny committee with further details. So take on board all of your questions about the things you want to know as a committee when we report back.
Thank you. James, please.
Yeah, thank you. So I was going to reiterate that point you made there, that just by definition, a small school doesn't mean a failing school, and some of the best schools are small because of some of the things Karen outlined. The 2 points I wanted to make. One, again, picks up on your final part there, or about information. It seems to me that what we really need to understand is how vulnerable some of these schools are. Just because one is very small doesn't mean it's vulnerable. So data around outcomes and finances, even if it's just reg rated, would help us to see the overall landscape for this. You could have most of those schools are absolutely fine. I suspect they're not. But what we also need is built in the demographic projections moving forward, so that I think the question earlier would probably have led on to, that's the picture now. In 2 years' time, how many small schools will we have, and how many will that 5 now be 8? That's the kind of thing I think this scrutiny committee needs to hear. And then one of the paragraphs, 14, Nottinghamshire Small School Sustainability Strategy encourages the governing bodies to take action. I've got a little bit of an issue with encourages. I think small schools failing presents a significant risk to a community, but also to the council. And you've outlined some of those reasons that they're a big one being if they've got a deficit, that school can't carry on, that deficit falls to the council. So I think there's a much stronger requirement for local governors to act, and I'd be interested as part of this committee to understand which small schools are taking the right actions and which you are worried about in terms of their planning for the future. I think that's also something because then local councillors can also speak to governors and heads and encourage them when they do meet up with them. So just a few suggestions there.
Thank you, James. I think there's some really useful things in there which we can bring back to you next time we bring this report to you. In terms of the word encourages, they are required annually to talk about this. So it was kind of one step stronger perhaps than the encourages, which is what it says in the report. Every governing body of a small school must annually consider the recommendations in that small school strategy and make their own decision, obviously, about whether they go with them or not, but they're not allowed to avoid it. So it's probably one step stronger than it appeared there.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody.
Just a couple of questions. First one is the report identifies 5 schools at risk, currently at risk. Is that number increasing or decreasing compared to previous years? My second point is looking at my area. I've got 4 schools on the chart here. Quick add up in my head, I think I've got 10 primary schools with the 11th going through planning on fair and pastures, which will make 11. I think I'm pretty knowledgeable and know which schools you're referring to, not being sustainable in my patch, which I won't name. My other question is, we've got 2 schools in Runnington, one which is now a temporary village, which I think is a fantastic job being done there, and we've got the chance to rebuild the school. Then we've got a second primary school, which is very old, on very valuable land. The question is, why we've got the opportunity, put those 2 schools together and save this council a hell of a lot of money? Thank you, Chair.
So your first question, there are more schools at risk than there have been in the past, and that is a national trend linked to the birth rate, and also linked to the financial challenges that our schools face. So we're working really closely to support those schools, and we're projecting as far into the future as we can, so that we're getting support in, not saying we're in crisis now, but we're saying it's looking a bit rocky in the next 3 to 5 years. Let's get the support around you to try and do what we can to prevent that. And I think your other question sort of relates to a wider conversation around school-based planning. We're aware of those conversations. The school that you're talking about is part of the Department of Education school rebuilding programme, which we work closely with the Department of Education. I'll not go into the detail of that for this committee today. However, I will say that Karen and the team are working closely with the planning team and the building team to make sure that all options are still available in the future, even if they're not on the table right now.
May I come back?
You can.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned in your reply financial implications of non-sustainable school today. But what I mentioned about Runnington, that would answer those financial questions for you to help sustain those schools that are struggling a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mason, please.
Committee, basically, the last 2 gentlemen have covered some points, because I was worried about if we can't bail them out, but we have to foot the bill. What authority does this authority have to make changes at a school? And I don't think we do. Like the lady said, we recommend and they consider at once. Is there ever a point where it gets to, because we are footing the bill, we get a little bit more of this, you know what I mean? We're drifting. I don't like drifting. I like going in a different direction, please. Thank you. The responsibility on a day-to-day basis sits with the school's governing body. So we would have a process. If this process showed us that there was a concern about a school, then officers would meet with the governing body of that school and share their concerns. If a governing body persistently fails to take action that we believe to be genuinely necessary, then there are processes that we can go to following the schools of concern process that the DFE sets out. To ultimately, you could seek that the DFE remove that governing body and then replace them with something else. So that there are processes that you can go through if a governing body doesn't seem to be doing right by the children that they're leading at the school for.
You can, yes.
Thank you very much. That's reassuring. Obviously, we would like to get on with everybody, and you know, we recommend this, and they do that, etc., to work together. And you've got it 1 year in, and you're talking about joining schools up. I don't suppose any of these people at the moment who are involved, difficulties, whatever trouble you like, are close to each other. So it's like that gentleman says, you can, I don't know, negotiate which way to go to help save one of them, rather than lose both of them. I'm getting nods. Thank you, I'm sure.
No, I think you're talking about exactly what the teams are working on a day-to-day basis with the schools, trying to be creative, to think about how they work with other schools, how they can share resources, and you're also right to point out that geography can be a real challenge, which comes back to the challenges of some of our small rural schools. So if those are some of their strengths, because they're the centre of these rural communities, but there can be some challenges when they become isolated in terms of collaboration.
Thank you. Councillor Brad, please.
Thank you, Chair. With respect to school governors, I've sat on 2 different schools as a governor over the years, my time as councillor, and you get very passionate about your school and you protect it no matter what. And it sort of makes them blind to the bigger picture. They don't realise that they may be stopping or they're preventing that school from, or even potential closure because of their blindness to what's happening. And so I don't think that decision should be in the hands of the governors, although they can make their own. A lot of governors haven't got children at that school. And looking at the demographics, the geography in Ruddington, they're very close to each other. And St Peter's School has got massive amounts of land. And to me, it seems this is the chance to do something with it. Otherwise, it's just going to be fields.
Thank you.
Can we respond to that?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, just on here, because you've mentioned it a couple of times, and I live there, so totally have nieces go there. It's a great idea. Councillor Matthews would have been potentially talking about this, so we'd like to take it away with you and follow up and see if this can be a genuine thing and look to do. If not, but we certainly managing expectations, because I know I've had them in my patch about asking for school stuffs, certain projects. So we're all fighting like governors, we're all fighting for our patch and corner. But yeah, thank you for your request. And if you'd like to follow up, let's have a serious meeting with Councillor Matthews, because I know that you share the same division as a 2-man division. All right. Is that okay?
Thank you. So I've got another question I'd like to put forward. My research says that not many local authorities throughout the country have adopted the small school sustainability strategy. So based on that, I assume it's cost, the reasons why the other authorities haven't adopted the scheme. And based on the fact that they haven't, and we have, can you give us, to date, I know it's 2 years, but can you give us our greatest success story and support it with some memorable outcomes?
I'll quickly go first. I think one we've already mentioned is the primary school work at Cullen. I think, and people probably in my group might not like to say this, but the previous administration obviously were part of this decision to make this strategy plan there, and it would have been very interesting to see the impact had we not had this in place and this investment in the first place. That primary school would have been gone for good. And I know it got very late to the 11th hour about what we were going to do with it, and I certainly agree with Councillor Cullen's sentiment about we don't want to close any school if we can. So I'd simply say as a real life example, that we got in there quick, we're able through the relation to identify it. But if we didn't, you'd think we'll just get closed, wouldn't it? So I think that's something to bear in mind, that the impact that school would have gone, and then the flexibility and the relationship within the local authority and the schools to actually work together. And then, like I say, on the 11th hour, it was going to close, but then we were flexible to actually go, well, hold on a minute, we can make this a centre provision. So I think that's one way, a tangible example that I come to mind that's actually a positive from this.
Lovely, thank you very much. Councillor Mason.
You know, when we have, or unfortunately, one will close. What happens to it? Does it like get mothballed, or does it just get sold, or does it just become part of an estate? Or because what I'm thinking is eventually there will be more children. Might not be now, but there will, as you say, ups and downs. So if you get rid of schools without giving the transport facility to the rural area to get to wherever you're going to make them go, you are defeating the object of not saving that building. Making sense? Yes, thank you. So I'm drifting.
I'll just come in and then I'll bring in Karen and some of the operational detail. The short answer is it depends on the situation for the school. So there's lots of different things to think about. Who owns the school building? Sometimes the council owns them, sometimes other organisations like multi-family trust or big organisations might own the school or community. So there's lots of things to consider. If children are displaced, if the school's closing, our teams will work really closely, and that's what happened in the case of Cullen people, to secure children school places as close as possible and to provide transport if required. And then Karen, you might just say a little bit about the school place planning approach in Nottinghamshire, which is planning several years in advance and linking to evidence like the birth rate, for example. So we are working our best to avoid exactly what you said, which is we close the school and then we actually need it again in a few years. So things are planned in advance.
Have you ever thought about going for the community heritage building? You make it a heritage asset by going through that process, like people do for pubs or whatever, because it's a school. And while it is a school, you can make it a heritage asset, and then there would be this option of right to buy. Now, I'm not saying the community will be able to afford to buy it, but they could do fundraising or, you know, things online where everybody chucks a pound in for people that's had a problem. So, have you ever thought about doing anything like that?
So the third option was on the table with Gordon, actually, where in the consultation, one thing that was unequivocally quite clear was the residents' voice on the building, just not just being pricing, like it being maintained and being of good use to the community. So yeah, I think that's a project we would consider moving forward to look into it without being creative before. As I say, when birth rates do go on, you've already got a backup plan, but keeping this community centre, that was really important to those residents. I remember Councillor, it was more Councillor Lawson, I think, was passionate about that as well. But yeah, it was like 90% of people talk about protecting the building, so it is a very good idea.
Try and start it sooner because it takes a while. That's the only thing, just get them interested in it so you get all the paperwork. It takes forever to do.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Saddington.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, for bringing me back in on this. The Thornton Dean Hall was very, very different from the majority of schools that you probably would consider closing. Because when that school was built, I can't give you the year offhand, but when it was built, the community didn't have a community hall. And they paid for the school hall, the community paid for the school hall. So it was a case of if you closed Dean Hall School, they lost their community hall for which they owned. So there was a difference there. And I think that's where your negotiations had to come in on that element, because you couldn't just take something away that was within a school that the parents had purchased. So, you know, I'm the district councillor there. That's why I got involved with Karen when Chris Lawson wasn't available. I do thank you because I know it means a lot. Because with the former Manor Sutton School closing within a mile, so it was going to be two very big schools, big rural schools that closed. And the former Manners Sutton School has really been resolved well. So, you know, I thank everybody for that too.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so can I ask Mark to summarise, please?
Yeah, I think we've had quite a discussion on this. I think personally, I think obviously the officers have assured the committee that the relevant divisional members will have discussions about those schools at risk. But I think from the feeling in the room, it would be useful if a slightly more detailed summary of the schools at risk and what's being done could be provided to members of the committee at an appropriate level. Because obviously the full committee doesn't need to know the details that the actual divisional members need to know. So just pitching it as a point in between, that would be really helpful. And then I think, obviously we'll talk about the work programme later, but I think it may be useful that sometime during 26-27, a briefing notice circulated to members of the committee, perhaps spring next year, so that members can kind of see what's happening and how things are moving forward and what the current situation is. Right, and then if members do want to bring it back to committee, we can. I think that might be about the best way to do it.
Lovely, thank you very much. Can I confirm with the members that all our points have been captured, please? And I have a show of hands. Thank you. Item number 7, virtual school update. May I ask Rory Green to introduce the report? Please may I ask for a little bit of an explanation on virtual school, because I think it's something that it doesn't mean what it says on the tin, and I think a little clarity for members and for the public would go down a treat, because it's over to you.
Thank you, Councillor Darrington. Yeah, I love our virtual school. I think they're fantastic. I'll just quickly answer your question, Direct. So, up to 18 years old, we have a statutory responsibility. So, any looked after child, so it just comes into care in Nottinghamshire, it's our obligation as corporate parents to look after them and monitor them. So, it's almost like a pseudo school. So, we have Steph, who's the lady speaking today. She's like the head teacher. Then you have the deputy head teacher who is going to join us on screen. So, Ian Marshall, I've met multiple times. So, I'd like to introduce you. Can you hear us, Ian?
Yes, I can hear you. That's fine.
So I'm just going to introduce you to the report and then Ian's going to provide a little bit more detail. So when Ofsted was in 2024 for inspection of local authority children's services, they stated that our virtual school is extremely ambitious, effective and aspirational for children in care. And I think that is the evidence to talk about the strength of our virtual school. So what it looks like is a team within the county council, so a head teacher, deputy head teacher, and then a team of achievement officers who are responsible for our children's care and education. So in the report, you'll see the kinds of things that they do. You'll see a list of the staffing, and we have 927 children that the local authority virtual school team are linked to. So you'll notice it's slightly more than the number of our children in care, because they support children up to 18, so sometimes they work with the care leavers to support them into their next stage of education or training. So for some of our children, they left school and we're still working with them to make sure that they're continuing at college or into employment or support internships, etc. And the real priorities, and you'll see some of the detail here, and then I'm going to ask Ian to talk about some of the detail, is supporting the attendance of our children in care, making sure they're attending education, making sure they're not being suspended or excluded, and making sure that they're entering into education, employment or training when they leave school age, and making sure they're making progress academically to their learning. They're making progress in their literacy and numeracy and reaching their qualifications. And what this looks like on the ground is just like you would do for your own children. They're going to meetings, they're having conversations with school. If there's a difficulty at school, they're speaking to the head teacher and saying, how can we figure this out? And they're advocating and speaking up for our children in care. We also receive lots of government grants that the local authority receives to promote the achievements of our children in care, such as pupil premium, for example. So schools receive that and they administer it, and it's all about creating equal opportunities for our children in care, but they might have missed some of their life chances. So Ian, I wanted to know if you would just tell us a little bit more about the details of some of the success stories of the virtual school and the details on page 30 of the report, if you want to draw your attention. Over to you, Ian. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so point 8 of the report just talks about the priorities that all has just covered there. So at the time of writing, suspensions for Nottinghamshire looked after children are on a downward trend. No children have had a permanent exclusion who were looked after. And at the time of writing, 6 fewer children had been suspended when compared to the same time the year before. Just looking at today's data, that's increased to 9 fewer children as of Friday last week. Severe absence for children in Nottinghamshire who are looked after is reducing as well. End of reception, end of Key Stage 2 and end of Key Stage 4 outcomes for looked after children were higher in summer 2025 than in the previous year. And at the time of writing, the percentage of our children aged 16 to 18 in education, employment and training was 5% higher than the same time last year. The number of young people in year 12 who are not in education, employment or training has more than halved when compared to the same time last year. There were just a few projects in point 10 that I just wanted to draw your attention to. So in terms of promoting education outcomes, we've identified through data tracking that numeracy or early maths was an issue. So we used some of the grant funding to fund catch-up numeracy intervention. We invited school staff around our specific children to come and receive some training to deliver an intervention. We got about 15 schools who signed up for that. They've now been trained and that intervention's happening. And the whole idea is that we're looking at data and why children might not be in education, employment and training. Quite often that's because they've not been able to secure English and maths at the end of Key Stage 4. So we're really trying to get in there early. We've identified that early intervention. It's the keep up rather than catch up's more effective. We've also got a project that we're really proud of called the Multimodal Literacy Project, or MML. Again, this year we've tried to be really strategic, looking at data and identifying children in year 3 and 4 who'd be in need of that early catch up. But the programme can run for year 2s right up to year 9s. And again, that's about trying to give children opportunities to engage in literacy in its widest sense, developing skills around computing and speaking and listening, as well as reading and writing. We've also got the Letterbox project, which delivers books directly to our looked after children. And again, you can see some quotes in the report about that. And another project we're really proud of is Care to Dance, about giving children wider experiences to access the arts. So again, trying to give some of our children the opportunities that other children might ordinarily get to close that gap.
Thanks very much, Ian. And the final point to make is that the virtual school has extended duties to support all of our children who are known to social care and previously had a social worker. So there's also work that we do as an organisation to raise the profile of this group in our education setting, delivering training, and a fantastic project called the Building Relational Schools Programme, which lots of our school leaders have attended, which is about developing attachment-aware and trauma-informed practice in our school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other officer would like to comment on anything? Super. Okay, so can I move the recommendations and seek a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to move this debate to the floor. I would like to start again, if that's okay. Next question. So the report is showing many positive examples. Are there any interventions that's not delivered expected outcomes? And what lessons have been learned, if there are?
A great question, Chair. I'm going to bring Ian in around some operational examples. And I guess the key thing I would reflect, being the director for this service, is that they have a reflective and a learning approach across the whole team. So the question that you're asking, they're constantly asking that for all of their children. How could things be better? How could we improve? So what that looks like, for example, I went to one of their team meetings and they're looking at an example of a personal education plan for one child and talking about this is their progress and how do we encourage them to make more progress. So I think it's a fantastic question, but I just wanted to assure you that idea of learning and reflecting and doing things better is built into the team. Ian, I don't know if you have any.
Sorry, Ian, I think.
So very good question. We've had direct feedback. So during the looked after children councillor we have. If you're aware of it, I'm sure you are. So that looked after children have the representation of their own little council. So I have the duty of going in every 6 weeks with them and sitting with them. So some of the direct feedback is through something crucial with youth mentor, which is a PEP, a personal education plan. So sometimes what's happened historically, to answer your question directly, is the child is just last minute to know, got you at your meeting. So what we've identified early on is that children not being given enough notice to actually discuss their personal education plan. Usually happens in school. So that's direct feedback from the child's works that we validated just in the last month or two, where we should be as a human being, like we would have these meetings, like these meetings are in our diary quarterly or every 6 months, every 6 weeks. In the same way, we could be better at actually notifying the child, because sometimes we can be a bit last minute, a bit rushed. So I think that's one area definitely from the child that they just have, because they can be very honest, and one their honesty is give them more notice rather than just kind of saying, oh, by the way, we've got your meetings. Yeah, we could do better and looking to do better on that.
If I could, I apologise. Yeah, if I could just build on that. So just off the back of that, Councillor Green, I'm meeting with the Children in Care Council today because they talked about the changes they'd like to make to the PEP system. We've put some proposals together, and we're obviously going to take that to children today to get their views and input in light to sort of trying to improve the process from their point of view. So something we always prioritise is pupil voice, and we're always pushing that in whichever spaces we're in. In terms of the sort of even better ifs around the projects, I think really sometimes the projects are limited due to a range of factors. There's a lot going on in all children's lives, and when children are looked after, that's often amplified. So there's things, even where the project's working really well, such as Care to Dance, there are some children who, for lots of different reasons, we'd like to access it, and maybe they're not ready for that space, or perhaps there's other barriers in the way. So we're working to reduce those. Things like the MML project, sometimes we know it's an absolutely wonderful project, but sometimes you try and sell that project to schools, and that the schools have got a lot going on, lots of competing priorities, and sometimes it's just about getting them to understand what the project looks like. So this year we've got one of our achievement officers who's taken the lead on that project, and we're looking at how to onboard schools and how we can more effectively do that. By we've targeted fewer schools and children, and we're trying to do a much better job of communicating what the project is to try and remove that barrier. And another project that Orla spoke about that's absolutely brilliant is the Building Relational Schools. But again, it's so good. There's sometimes a waiting list, and we've got schools who'd like to be on that multiple times. So again, it's looking at how we use funding to work with the Education Psychology Service to increase cohorts. We've increased that from 3 to 4, so we can get more people there. So there are limitations, but quite often it's quite child specific. And where there are issues, for example, if a child can't get to Care to Dance, we'd use the personalised education plan and their pupil premium plus funding to try and target specific support at school level, so they get access to those provisions locally.
Lovely, thank you very much. Can I bring Councillor Butler in, please?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, can I thank you genuinely for your explanation as to what we mean by virtual school. I'm new on this committee, and I must admit, when I first read the name virtual school, I thought, what is it? And my initial assumption, before I started reading about it, was it was more to do with home learning. That was my perception of it. So I'm just wondering, is the terminology virtual school, I mean, is it just something we do as a council, or is it a sort of national, or not? Sorry, you asked the question. So it is a national initiative. So that's good. And this is a good report, because it's showing sort of what you've been doing with many of our vulnerable and youngsters who are at risk of getting some difficulties. So that's really good. So if it's national, then, so have we got any information as to how we're doing compared to other parts of the country? And also, how long's it been going? I genuinely can't really recall for sure. Apologies if you already told but yeah, really, how are we doing compared nationally? And also, I read some somewhere that things like suspensions and so on are reduced, which is great, which is good news, and long may that continue. What have we done to achieve that?
Thank you, Councillor. I share the same sentiment. I don't really like the name much myself. I think it feels like they're online somewhere or on the website. So yeah, I don't know if this potential avenue for could be unique and maybe even have our own thing. I don't know if that'd be great for you. But yeah, one thing I'm passionate about is how in touch are we with our young people? Are we there with them as support parents? So something that I would like to try and celebrate out loud is we're in touch with 99% of children in virtual school. That extends up to even the care leavers as well. So the average nationally is around 93, 92%. And I know Councillor Cullen, I remember they said we should be 100. So I'm like, yeah, I mentioned in court parents about this 1%, and that we want to be in touch and we want to be spacious and have a care for them. So yeah, that's something that I would celebrate and say we are doing really well as a council. Say the virtual school is their hard work. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it is a national terminology, and our the head of our professional school is part of the National Association of Professional School Heads. And linking in with those national networks is really useful to improve practice. You asked a really good question about what is the team doing to reduce suspension. And I was just going to bring in Ian actually, because there's a really innovative example with the new post in one of our multi-academy trusts. Ian, I thought that might be useful to share.
Yeah, that's fine. So in terms of the virtual schools work around suspensions, we'd identified suspensions as being higher than obviously we'd like them to be for looked after children. So we wanted to make sure there's a consistent approach. So we developed something we called it a graduated response to suspensions. And it's really clear in terms of what we'd expect our workers to do as soon as there's a suspension that comes in, and what we'd be expecting schools to be doing at that point. So at the start of the year, we sent some guidance out to schools that's really clear about the importance of avoiding suspensions for all children, but particularly looked after children. As soon as a child in Nottinghamshire, or a child looked after to Nottinghamshire, receives a suspension, then the achievement officer will email school, send the guidance about what should be done and what shouldn't be done. They send some information about a reintegration plan to make sure that shame is avoided. And where a child then receives their third episode of suspension, we have put together a checklist to go into schools and work with them around what reasonable adjustments might children need. We're trying to identify that this child might potentially be on a little bit of a slippery slope, so we want to get them there early and stop that slide as quickly as we can. And then if it gets more serious than that, we've got a framework to go in and work with school leaders so we can try and change things at policy and culture level where possible. So that's sort of been our response to suspensions. What we're also trying to do, because as Ola alluded to, the bread and butter of our work is around looked after children, but we've also got an extended duty around children on child protection plans or child in need plans, and also children in kinship care. So we're thinking more carefully about how we can influence colleagues who are working with children around making those responses to suspension as robust as we can do. I don't know if that answers the question, Ola.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question was very similar to the word virtual. To me, was somewhere in cyberspace floating around somewhere. And I think for the general public that'd be very confusing the word virtual. Maybe we should rename it. So, I mean, I'm still confused how they get talking groups or they come together somewhere. To me, it's still a mystery. I may be missing something.
I think the virtual school the virtual schools came into being in 2014, and I don't know. I suppose the virtual world was around at that point, but I think it's kind of gone up a few levels in the 12 years since virtual schools have been around. And I agree, there's a huge misconception about what that term means. At the recent National Association of Virtual School Heads conference, we had a workshop about how useful it would be nationally to change that name. So I think it's a frustration shared by colleagues in virtual schools. But it's sort of a national issue, and I think it's been looked at in terms of what would be a more useful name. But when we've tried to work together with colleagues to think about a more useful name, it's quite difficult. But I agree, the the wording is not particularly helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Mason, please.
Normally we hear about all the negatives of people in care, and I just wondered, although they're provisioned for and with each other X amount, etc., if there are teachers or the assessors spot people with gifts, if you like, whether it be dance or is there a way to help them more? And I don't mean to give them more preferential treatment, but if you've got a gift, to be in care should block you from developing that gift. So do we have a path for those people? Please.
Do you want me to jump? Would you like me to go first, Ola?
Yes, do. I think it's a great question, too. And I think Ian just talked a little bit about character dance. It's a great example. And then I think Councillor Green wants to come in. Just start in.
Okay, I'd just say every single child who's looked after, regardless of their ability, if they're a high flyer, and we have got lots of high flying children who are looked after, so thank you for putting that lens on things. They all receive the same level of funding, so it's additional £700 that comes in through our pupil premium funding. They'll all have a personalised education plan, and it's a case of saying to schools, how can we make things even better? So for a child working at a grade 8 in maths, we're really aspirational to say, well, what can we do to get a 9, and where's next in terms of those next steps. We also work with an organisation called Royal Springboard, which is to secure places at private schools or higher education for children. And again, there's panels where we can talk about children who are gifted or might benefit from that sort of opportunity. Sorry, Councillor Green, I think you wanted to come in.
Yeah, it's a big passion of mine actually. It's believing in the child and understanding that they're behind it, had a head start. I think that the moment to have that is in your personal education program meetings, so PEPs. So, you know, if a teacher who's spending more time spotting it is for them to show up, if a care staff, if a foster carer, it's their duty, I'd say, to identify and speak up and be that pushy parent. So I would answer that has to happen in the PEP, and with the child's voice at it, so that, you know, if they're saying, oh, I want to go here, then like you mentioned, they're going to go above and beyond to make it happen, like a scaffold, say, we're going to make this happen, we'll manifest it and not give up on them. I know a lot of looked after children, particularly children's homes also, they have so many opportunities that they're blessed with through visitations and through sports club. They're just immersed in all these amazing activities. So yeah, I wanted to share that as a positive thing that we do, that we are that kind of pushy parent, like I say, like my grandmother. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. McGeachie, please.
Thank you. So just to start off with, a massive thank you to everyone concerned and involved with the virtual school. This direction of travel is amazing. I've worked in schools all my working career, and I know how challenging those environments can be for children who are looked after. So this is brilliant news. Really is good. All the metrics you presented there on the up or improving certainly. The question though, if we're going to be truly aspirational for children in care, should we not at least be tracking against those who are not in care? And that's probably essential because there is going to be a huge gap, but a good demonstration of us going in the right direction is that we can see the gap to those not in care closing. So around suspensions, for example, they've improved for children in care, but if they've improved a whole lot more for those not in care, it would suggest that we need to do even more. So particularly around NEAT, I think it would really help. There's bound to be some amazing good news stories from children in care, what their destinations have ended up being, but we're not seeing that in this report. So something that really promotes successes even more for those who are in care would be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's the hard balance of giving equity because of that adverse childhood experiences against actually them just fitting in. And that was one of their voices in the last couple of months in the video that put together, is that they just want to be checked
like I say, it's not validate it, but be fit into these environments. One success I will share to the committee is that we've just had a university graduate become a doctor, which is phenomenal. So, you know, there's like little seeds planted that if they're given the opportunity to calculating those opportunities. We've also, I wanted to publicly acknowledge Councillor Teresa as well, who as a core parent got a care experience adult now around the age of late 20s, got back in touch with the county council and that residents down there, some of the team with the schools gave them that scaffolding and that opportunity pathway that they now attended university as well. So at that age they felt, actually I just want to go to study and get a degree and then have a career. So sometimes that lag when maturity comes, and that's how our duty to treat them the same. But yeah, it's a great point with aspiration as well.
Thank you. Councillor Cullen, please.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to read. It's nice to read about successes. But I'm just going to come back to the fact that we're a scrutiny committee. And I'm also going to come back to the fact that I didn't get my papers in advance. So if it's in here, good, just say it's on such and such page. Does the virtual school have an Ofsted grade? And if it does, what is that? But in addition to that, I have seen in the report that, and you said in your report that we work with 927 children and young people in the virtual school. And then I read that there are 6 fewer children that have been suspended. Well, that sounds really good, but if it's 700 instead of 706, it doesn't sound as good, does it? So there's no way of being able to scrutinise that and judge whether that's a good outcome or just oh, that's not bad, you know. And then looking down through the report, and I just think it's the same thing that we said of the other report. The fact that we can only scrutinise something if we've got detail and data. And this is a nice report to read, but we're not here to read nice reports. We're here to scrutinise what's happening. So I'd like to be able to know if there is. And I thought it was great what James said about, you know, tracking against young people who aren't looked after is interesting, but there's all sorts of factors there. But tracking against our own data is a lot simpler. For example, at a time of writing, children aged 16 to 18 in education and employment and training is 5% higher than the same time last year. Well, we already know from a previous report to the previous meeting, and we've seen it in the press, you know, nationally, there's a huge increase in young people who are NEET. And you know, so 5% higher, 5% of, you know, 5% of what? It's just nothing to go on. And it's really nice to read nice things in a report, but I don't, you know, I don't believe in just having a comfortable feeling because you only know the good stuff. In your scrutiny committee, you need to know, and also what have we got to do, and what do we need to say. So just that really. Well done, though.
Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, may I ask Martin to summarise, please?
Again, a really good discussion. I think the key thing comes to that final one, and this has been a long request from many scrutiny committee members over many years. It is a request for the data and whole numbers where possible. So if we could have some kind of briefing paper the second round, it just gives that a little bit more of the actual data and the numbers involved. I think members would find that useful, just to give that extra assurance that the virtual school is performing at the level that we see it is from the report.
Lovely, thank you. So can I confirm with the members that all our points have been captured? And have a show of hands, please. Lovely, thank you very much. Agenda item number 8, implementation of the recommendations of the scrutiny review of foster care recruitment and retention. So before I ask Rory Green to introduce this report, no, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to come back in. Rory Green, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, one of the most of my responsibility, though, said is part of mine. This is what I was excited to share as well as the landing agenda. This is about our foster retention. So the scrutiny, I think you had it in March 25, I believe, so that was before I was even here. So we've listened to those recommendations. I don't think back in September. So there were 7 in total, so we have all the full answers to you. I've got my superstar with me today. So I don't think, is it on that Wesley? Yeah, so just to give some manage the way. Yeah, is it on that before? No? So this gentleman lives in British fostering, and he's a manager service, and I wanted him to call me today because this is his leg, and he's wonderful. So I'm really excited about this agenda item. As you've seen, it's one of my priorities, one of this administration's priorities to retain and mean look after and recruit more. We're in a national, I would say, what you could say crisis, but we need thousands upon thousands of more of them. And so we've been imploring the public, it's one of my top 3 priorities, to look after our foster carers and to get more. So I'll pass you over, Chair, to Matt Weston, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm Matt Weston, I'm the head of service for Homes for Children and Support Services. But in my previous role, I was the service manager of fostering, and so this is why I'm here today. So as Councillor Glyn identified, the report is looking at some of the task and finish scrutiny group to look at how we could recruit and retain foster families within Nottinghamshire. What were we already doing? What could we do better? And so I'm here to just update on where we've got to as part of that. There were 7 recommendations. The first one was to look at raising the profile of fostering. So hopefully all of you have seen the Foster Free East Midlands campaigns that are around and about across the East Midlands. So we work with Derby City, Derbyshire, Nottingham City and ourselves as part of Foster Free East Midlands Councils. That launched in April 2024 to be a recruitment hub for any potential new foster carers. We are currently working with the Department for Education to look at turning that to what's called an end-to-end hub, and that's from Josh McAllister's report around renewing fostering and trying to get 10,000 more fostering families or fostering placements available for children and young people. So the idea is that we are using marketing and working together with the 4 local authorities and a marketing team based at Derby City as Foster Free East Midlands Councils to try and raise the profile of becoming a foster family within the East Midlands. So part of the recommendation was to look at how we could further large-scale awareness and marketing. So we do a kind of a parallel approach. We do a big push from Foster Free East Midlands Councils, but also in Nottinghamshire, we work really closely with our communications team on how we can also look at events and we can look at promotions to support Foster Free East Midlands. So we've launched the lamppost campaign, but hopefully you'll have seen some banners on our lampposts across Nottinghamshire advertising and wanting to recruit more foster carers. One of which we knew worked because one of our foster carers saw that near 614 a few years ago and has now become one of our big foster carers and supporting 10 other foster families up in the Ollerton area of Nottinghamshire. We've also launched a number of business breakfasts to try and work with businesses around the local authority areas of D2N2, which is Derby, Derbyshire, Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. We've looked at trying to recruit businesses on board so that not only can they offer maybe some things for foster carers, but also they can look at how they can promote fostering amongst their organisation and can tap into their workforce and their employees who might have thought about fostering, but thinking, oh, I'm working full time, will I be supported with that? So we've tried to do a lot of work with the fostering network around that. We've also linked up with some of our partners, so Notts County Football Club. I went on what was a Valentine's Day speed dating event, which was a bit strange, but met with 50 different organisations and talked to them about what they can do for fostering as part of a Valentine's event, which was brilliant that they supported us and gave us access to the people who sponsor Notts County. And we're looking at how we can work with Mansfield Town and other big, important, high-profile leisure organisations across Nottinghamshire and D2N2. We do have a full listed marketing plan, and that is held by the communications team of Foster Free East Midlands Councils, and we have regular updates. So we feel really quite happy that we are driving forward the promotions, but it doesn't make us sit back and relax. We're always looking at creative ways that we can try and improve foster carers. For recommendation 2, was to look at the benefits package for foster carers in Nottinghamshire and who foster for the local authority. And what we've managed to implement on that one is an uplift in the basic fostering allowance, which is the amount of money that we pay for foster carers to have children in their care. And we recognise that as a basic fostering allowance, as well as then what we call a levels payment, which is based on the skills and experience that that foster carer has, so that they are not at any financial cost to have a child that we care for in their fostering family. We have successfully made this either at the level of the basic foster allowance as recommended by the Department for Education or above that. That historically has always been something that we've had for older children we care for, because we have more issues trying to find foster families for our teenagers and our adolescents. That's always kind of been representative. But that's something that we've also tried to agree with across D22, so that we're not competing with each other around the rates of pay that we're working with, because we want it to be collaborative. We've also managed to introduce automatic payments that are going to be there for foster carers. One of the important things we heard from foster carers is that they didn't want to kind of come cap in hand asking for money for birthdays or for holidays. So we've recognised that and identified, no, this is an allowance that we support you with, we want to support you with, so let's make this automatic. One thing we do know is when a birthday payment has to happen, and we've been planning that for 80, 90 years. So it makes sense that we have that as an automatic payment for foster carers. There's also been a change in approach to the fostering service around recognition, and we've tried to increase that regarding situations where we recognise fostering families are going above and beyond, which all of them do at many, many points in their journey around fostering. But to recognise that, to be able to reach out and say thank you and say how are you. And we've got really good relationship now with we have 186 fostering families who are really in touch with the service and feel part of the service. We've had some inquiries from our independent fostering agency colleagues who is a separate kind of business that they run and charge us separately outside of the local authorities, but we've had at the moment 4 independent fostering agencies who have looked at Nottinghamshire and said, actually, I want to work for the local authority because I think the support and the engagement is maybe offering what I need as opposed to what I'm getting now, which is a real positive, because that's a pattern we haven't seen necessarily historically. So where independent fostering agencies who can get paid more as financial support will recognise that actually the benefit is with the local authority, and they've managed to transfer over to us successfully. We've looked at other things that we can do as part of attracting fostering families to stay with us and to retain them. So we've had discussions with the local government pension scheme, and those discussions are ongoing as part of an idea about foster carers being able to pay into some sort of pension fund. And we've also had conversations with Westfield Health around the benefits that employees and officers can get around discounted rates for private healthcare. So we're still part of those discussions and looking at possibilities that we can do. Recommendation 3 was about working with districts and borough councils, and one of the main things was about council tax liability. And across the UK, there are many local authorities that do offer council tax reduction for foster carers if they work for a local authority. The only county area is Devon, who offer a 50% reduction for their fostering families. We've managed to get agreement from all 7 districts and borough councils saying that they believe that is a really positive thing, and looking at ways in which they can do that. Ashfield District Council have now, they are at the point where they have voted on that and agreed 100% reduction for fostering families who are supporting Nottinghamshire County Council and living in the Ashfield area to have 100% council tax reduction. So we're looking at how we can implement that across the other district and borough councils. And we've also got a leisure offer as part of the local offer for care leavers, where we offer free leisure access. That's also replicated with some of the leisure centres within Nottinghamshire, particularly the Everyone Active organisation who run the leisure centres in Ashfield. But we've managed to get a reduction for Mansfield leisure centres. They've offered a 33.4% reduction, which is a very specific number, but on any membership for fostering families that live in the Mansfield area. Recommendation 4 was to look at how we can become more fostering friendly, and that terminology is from the fostering network, around how organisations can recognise the support they can give to foster carers and people, specifically people who work for that organisation and who have care responsibilities. I'm really pleased to say that the Nottinghamshire County Council works alongside our HR colleagues, and we've introduced now paid leave provisions to a wide range of carers, not specifically just for foster carers, but looking at those that are kinship carers, which might be family members that aren't recognised as formally fostering, but looking after family. Shared lives carers, which is when adults need some additional support, so they're post-18 and work with adult social care, and also unpaid carers. So that's been introduced as of April 2026, where we offer 5 additional paid days leave. And for instance, it's been already mentioned the personal education plan, and actually foster carers who might work for an organisation, for Nottinghamshire County Council, might have a personal education plan meeting at 4 o'clock. So they need to leave work early in order to be there, because we want them there to advocate for the children and young people. So it's about giving them that flexibility, about able to meet those needs. Or for instance, if we have a situation where we ask the foster care to take an emergency situation where a child needs a placement that day, and that they need to be able to be flexible and take some time off in order to offer that support care to us and to our child. Recommendation 5 was around the current offer to foster carers and looking at ICT equipment or enabling them to able to access our internet and our systems. Part of that was also about information governance and making sure that all the information that we're sharing with foster carers is secure and appropriate, but also recognising the professionalism of foster carers by giving them a Notts County Council email address and enabling them access to training facilities that we have as both elected members and as officers. We've identified that it's the one-off financial investment would be quite considerate in order to do this, and doesn't necessarily meet all of the needs that we would have. The positive updates on that one is that I met with a foster carer and our ICT development team Friday to look at how web-based portal and how we can access all of the different computer things. I want to bring your own device, so if they've got a laptop or if they've got a what do you call them? iPad. I don't know what to name the brand, but yes, if you've got tablets, that would be the word. If you have other tablets are available. So if you have a tablet or a mobile device that you can actually link in with the system, that would be part of the team around the child, recognising the professionalism of foster carers. The foster carer that I asked to come to that is very keen on introducing this and left really impressed with our ICT colleagues, and so that's really positive move forward. We're going to have a bit of a trial basis with a number of foster carers because we want them to work. There's no point putting in things that are challenges or barriers. So, but that's a real positive. One of the suggestions around an app, but actually there isn't necessarily a need for an app because this is what would work as in for the web-based version. And we have previous experience where we had an app for children leaving care and they didn't tend to use it. It cost us a lot of money to keep adapting. So I think for the time being, our focus is on how we can make sure foster carers have the access to the ICT equipment as best as we can do that, but also that's effective. As part of that, we're also extending the offer to be a helpline and also be able to offer training and support for foster carers around the new social media implications around children under 16, how they can use their access to their internet, how they can put on security blocks within their home. So just to offer some reassurance about that they're doing what they need to do around ICT and the access to the web. Recommendation 6 was about a host of high-profile recognition events in Nottinghamshire. We're really pleased to say that last October we had Chris Akabusi MBE that came to our foster care conference that for the first time ever was led and run and planned by our foster carers. Chris was full of energy and we had our first ever recognition event where we identified foster carers and foster families who had gone above and beyond. Really, really positive event. Lots of people celebrated that and enjoyed that recognition. We further had in April this year a long service event where we celebrated everybody who's done 20 years of fostering for the local authority. So we had around 50 foster carers come to an afternoon tea. One foster carer is celebrating her 44 years of fostering for Nottinghamshire and has no plans, well, I'm not going to allow her, but has no plans on stepping back from fostering at the moment. We also have recognition awards taking place in October with Baroness Chloe Benjamin, who is going to come and present our recognition awards, but also talk about her experience of being somebody who's experienced care herself. As part of other events within D2N2, we've had a foster care conference across D2N2 with Mushy from Educating Yorkshire. Those who might have watched that programme, he was the young lad who had a stutter and couldn't speak and was supported from his teacher and wanted to do that a bit like so the film that you've seen about being able to talk, the King's Speech. He was really, really inspirational, and lots of foster carers really appreciated that day. We've also had a number of events like Fostering's Got Talent, which links to how we celebrate and promote our children in our care and how they can perform. So we had a drummer, we had somebody on guitar, we had dancers, we had singers, the racing car driver who showed us all of his and took questions afterwards, which was fantastic. And we have a Summer Fun Day that's coming up in August, a picnic in the park. We have a children of foster carers event to recognise what they do in order to support children to enter their family. So they're going to Walton Towers in August. And we have a foster care Christmas party. And we also linked up with Showcase Cinemas in order to do some free screenings over May half term of The Sheep Detectives. And that was lots of fostering families being able to take their children and their family units for free to the cinema and go and celebrate what they do. Recommendation 7 is about how the council engages with other local authorities undertaking transformation activity. We've sent a number of freedom of information requests to explore the local authority approaches, but we are also in touch, not just with D2N2, but around the East Midlands and with other local authorities. We've had some responses, so we'll be using those again as part of our ongoing Fostering Improvement Board work programme about where we can learn from others, where we can share our learning and where we can improve things across the board for our local authority foster families. So I've concluded my update. Sorry for kind of talking again. I'm happy to have any questions.
And that was super. Thank you very much, Matt. That was a great report. Can I move the recommendations and see? Thank you. I am now going to throw the debate to the floor. I'm going to start again. And I know that you're going to help me with this request. This is a request, not a question. A few months ago, the lamppost banner scheme, I think, is absolutely amazing. A few months ago, I offered to pay for my banner, one of my 2 banners in my patch, at a cost of 176 quid. Subsequently, quite a few fellow members also offered to pay. Now, as to date, I've not heard anything. Please take some money out of my pocket. Please invoice me. Find a way to make it happen, because I don't want to be told, well, we can't do that. No, you can do that. I'm wanting to pay for it, and I know quite a few other members do want to pay as well. So let's make that one work first and foremost. Secondly, what a fantastic initiative. So it's been running a few months now, May was it? So what's been the uptake so far? Obviously, it's a long process, so we can't see the final outcome. But what's the initial uptake, and how's that looking?
Thank you for the offer of finance. I never want to turn down that money, so we'll work on how we can support that. Thank you. Regarding the lamppost banners, so the first lamppost banners started going up on the 6th of May, which we had a lot of publicity around, specifically within our communications team. So I have got some information around that. Now, realistically, from the point at which somebody asks, I'm interested in being a foster carer, there's a long process. So it takes, ideally, we want it to be less than 6 months because we have to do references, we have to do assessments, we have to make sure that it's the right time for that family, and as well as, criminal checks and all the things like that. So it is a bit, we won't be able to work out how many foster carers we've actually approved. However, we had 164 contacts within Foster for East Midlands since that date. That led to 60 inquiries. So contacted somebody going, oh, I'm interested, mate, can I have a bit more information? And inquiries actually then committing to that and saying, this is my name, this is my address, I would like to have more information about being in foster care. Out of that, in Foster for East Midlands, we've had 34 home visits where we've gone out to go and speak to those potential fostering families, and that's resulted in 21 of those applying for being foster care, of which 6 are specifically for Nottinghamshire. We had 34% of all of our inquiries were people living in Nottinghamshire, so we saw an increase. And 20% of those that inquired specifically asked for Nottinghamshire County Council. The remaining 14% identified that they had no particular preference, but they were allocated to Nottinghamshire because that's their home locality. The demographics were that, and this is still early information, but we had an increase of 3.14% of new users around the Mansfield area. And the banners were the only targeted campaign in Mansfield at that time. So it's not a given. Somebody could have seen things on social media or on Facebook, but it does show a pattern that we did have an increase in people being on traffic to the Foster Frith Midlands website. In Nottinghamshire, we've managed to approve one mainstream fostering family since the beginning of June, but I've been told that we've had 2 more since then. And we've had an increase of 5 assessments commenced. So we are seeing that there's a pattern of an increase in interest in being a foster family. Again, my caveat on that is it's fostering fortnight. We had a lot of things going on, but all of the banners added to what was happening in those discussions with people.
Lovely. Thank you. Councillor Burnham, please.
Thank you. Wow. I'm sitting here, several metres between, I can feel your passion. I really can, and your sincerity. And I won't labour the point because scrutiny is my bag. Martin's captured it, and you've all raised it again with another scrutiny where the reports we're getting full of narrative, but we're not actually getting anything we can get our teeth into to scrutinise, certain facts, figures, dates, etc. And then we get this report. You've told us all the things you're doing, how you're doing them, the results from them. I mean, that's fantastic. So for me, I'd just like to say well done, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Rich.
Working, that's not working. There you go. That's working, that's working. Right then, so at the moment, I'm just going to take my councillor hat off at the moment. I'm going to be a bit more geeky nerd type thing. So the question I have is, it's a website, you know, for the portal that you've got. Have you thought about a web app? Because you've got devices like Chromebooks, they use a lot of web app space. I thought that would be more an added advice. And the second question is, the progress of recommendation 7, what freedom of information. I want to know what's the information was requested and when was it sent? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So I fully admit my first degree was in business and marketing. So when I kind of joined Foster Frith Midlands, I did disclose that, and I was put as kind of the link person to understand the difference between social care and what we were doing, and then our fostering team. We've got really good fostering team, Foster Frith Midlands Councillors and comms and marketing alongside our comms and marketing team. So I think what I would say is nothing's off the table. We investigate all the time. One of the things that we're working with the Department for Education is how we can capture more inquiries and what we call keeping warm. So it might be the case that somebody might inquire and then it isn't followed through, and what we're doing in order to go back to them and say, so you inquired 3 months ago and you decided you weren't maybe in a position, what can we do now around doing that? So absolutely it's something that we can explore, how we can use technology and develop. Some of the things we also do is really specifically target on Indeed and other kind of websites and on Google searches to try and identify, you know, capture anybody that's looking at fostering. Actually, we're one of the first people that they see from Foster Frith Midlands. Regarding recommendation 7, so what we asked for from our fellow local authorities is what they're doing around retention. Are they doing council tax reduction? Are they looking at leisure centre offers, and to try and compare with what our recommendations were to what other people are doing regarding their retention and recruitment of foster carers. We get some of that information from the fostering network and our good links with the fostering network, but also to have a look at, you know, where can we learn, where can we make links, and put in an offer of we're happy to share our information with you as well to look at where we can learn. So, you know, I've made personal links with Lincolnshire around that, with the Kingston University. We've looked at kind of how we can link with other University of East Anglia. So we're looking at everywhere that we can around what's good practice, where can we make sure that we try and raise the bar of that, how can we share our learning and our experience.
Rose come in as well.
Lovely, thank you. Yeah, Councillor Green.
Yeah, just to add to the creativity that you've mentioned, Councillor Rich, is really quite noted. We're always open for ideas. Another thing I wanted to note to committee was the cliff edge effect that we saw. That I had the honour of going to Cotcliffe House for the celebrating the 20 plus years, and you've got 50 odd that are there out of over 180. Then what? When they're of a certain age and demographic. So we are looking at that as well in terms of being creative and thinking, well, what can we possibly do ahead of time rather than just reacting, being proactive and getting as many before we naturally will lose foster carers just simply because of the amount of years they've been on the earth. The other side of the thing, Matt and I had a discussion about is potentially the avenue of re-contacting old foster carers because of the improvements in the service, because of, you heard of the ICAs, the Independent Fostering Agency people wanted to come across, you know, in spite that we pay them less, which is a wonderful compliment to the service. So yeah, it's going back in time 1 or 2 years ago. So we're saying, yeah, would you consider coming again? What would you like to see what we do now? And is there any feedback that you want to give us? Honest feedback saying, you had some hurts, you had some pains, how can we be there for you? So it's just really delivering this, thinking outside the box, but it's a really good idea about the app as well. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Saddington, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I have to say this was an interesting report on your part. And I would ask that if you are having new applications for foster carers, foster caring is so important. It's giving a child a home and a normal home. And I'm very much for that, as I am adoption. But I wonder if this could come back in 6 months' time to give us an update of the advertising on the lampposts and wherever else, how successful it's been, and how many more importantly, foster carers you've actually taken on. Because it's very important that we as members know how successful it all is. And also, in item number 38, you list all the interesting events you've had. But I can say, as a member, I don't know about them until I read them here. Yet we're all corporate parents. And I'm just asking the question, because I know it's been done before, why we as members, and I'm not saying to be invited to the cinema events, where you've got something in the assembly rooms, why we're not invited to come along, speak to the children, speak to the parents, and give the support, which is the thing that we as members could do. I'm not saying everybody would come every time, but I think it would be interesting for A, us to play a part as a corporate parent, but B, to show them that there is somebody in this place, apart from yourself and the members of the leading administration and officers, that there are lots of us around who are interested in what they do each and every day. So that's my request, Chairman.
Lovely, thank you.
Just coming on a couple of those points. So definitely we have great performance information around recruitment and retention of foster carers. And so definitely happy to bring back a report. I do wonder if 6 months might be too soon. It takes 6 months for a foster,
yes,
from the point of application to being approved is about 6 months. And so if you want to look specifically at perhaps the impact in year of changes to the advertising in year, which the banners would.
If I can just come back on that, the reason I mentioned 6 months is because I was thinking of LGR and how everything will change and how it would be interesting to have that information before, rather than everything change and then
certainly provide something before an LGR.
Yeah.
I think probably just knowing that it takes a while for changes to make a difference over the time. And then in respect of events, absolutely happy to share the calendar of things that we might widen the invite list to. The corporate parenting panel members, of course there are a cross-partisan corporate parenting panel, and those members are very typically invited to events, but I expect we can expand the invite list to a wider group of members, especially children's events.
Lovely, thank you very much. If you could put that through me, and then I can invite individual committee members. If it's makes it simpler, that would be great. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Councillor Saddington. Yeah, in terms of the banners, it's a really exciting prospect, simply the fact that if the investment, so what was spent, gets one child at home, like you mentioned, a rightful home, that's worth it. So it would already trump any of the injection that's the investment that's gone into that, both in life outcomes and in secondarily the taxpayers' money. So I do have to make a point of that. And then the second one is the exciting prospect of corporate parenting. The whole ethos we did it. So we discussed this in the corporate parenting panel. So it was Councillor Gallen, Councillor Teresa, myself, and Councillor Wright. We're going to try and transform the way it's done, and the cross members, all 66, taking that responsibility and to own it together. So just keep inviting you to do that potentially. Pardon me?
I was just recalling we are organising an event in September for improving corporate parenting understanding. So definitely make sure that this group gets that involved. You probably said that anyway, apologies.
That's all right, yeah. And we'll always keep inviting you, as we did in May and June, to any possible thing, whether in person or not. We should take up from that school work. So, thank you.
Lovely. Councillor.
Yes, thank you. Very briefly, just picking up on the comment we just made about LGR and all the uncertainty of that. Have we got a date or a timescale in mind as to when we as a committee will have made the final sort of observation decision as to whether or not these recommendations have been successful or not? So in other words, what's the deadline in deciding that? Can I just also echo colleagues' points how important and seriously we all take fostering? It's so very, very vital and important for us to discuss. So and I know that anything we can do between us, both on this committee and across the authority, to spread the word and encourage people is well, we try and we should do. So just
thank you. I think what we would identify is from our figures about how many new foster families, obviously there will be a cut-off point linked to campaigns. Some of that discussion will be part of what foster preschool and councils prepare for us, linked to the different campaigns that they've had. Some of it's also an ongoing process, and what I would say is that from 2025-2026 figures, we actually ended March 2026 with an increase, a net increase of fostering families. For one of the first times in Nottinghamshire that we had more fostering families come to us and be with us as local authority than we did having leave us. And part of that retention strategy is also about looking at how we can learn from people who are leaving us and how we can look at, what's the reason why. And I think what we're really proud of is that actually after the 4 people left us because they were retiring, and unfortunately I kind of had to let them do that. Although I did have one foster carer say to me, I'm 76 man, I've got more energy than you, which I absolutely think they have. We had 4 other families that personal circumstances had to care for elderly relatives, and part of that was I'm going to have to move somebody into my home in order to look after them. And I had a direct conversation with them saying, well, I absolutely understand that, and if we can support you in any way to come back if the situation ever changes for you. And all 4 said, yes, absolutely, we want to continue fostering. And then some foster carers left because they had permanence plans for the children. So they got what we call a special guardianship order, which is similar to like an adoption in the sense that social workers are no longer involved because they're part of their permanent family. It affects my statistics and my data, but I have to look at the long-term vision that it's a positive thing for children to be in that fostering family, in that family forever as a permanent plan. So part of those campaigns, like I said, are ongoing about that retention and about the achievements with council tax reduction and how we can get on with that. But absolutely, we will identify some of the important data and some of the figures and where we can link that to some of the objectives and some of the work streams we will do.
Okay, thank you very much. So can I ask Martin to summarise for me, please?
A couple of bits. I think we've kind of covered that. I think, like I said, as Rich was saying, if members could be kept up to date with events, I think that'd be really kind of impactful if members could be involved and really have the opportunity to show how they're acting as the corporate parent. And with what Councillor Butler was saying, we've done lots of scrutiny reviews over the last 4 years, and we always bring a report after a year to say how we've done. I've said every single one, members have said, yeah, that's great, fantastic, everything's been done. Shut the door on that. But I think this one, the whole point of this report was for you to get assurance that everything has been done, all the recommendations have been met, we're happy to move on. I kind of get the feeling that members still want to look at this. So I think it would be useful if we bring a similar report back in a year's time, have like a further progress report on the further implementation.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Is it okay just?
Oh, sorry.
Just to clarify, because this report very specifically is an update on select committee, users task and finish group. You made 7 recommendations and here's what we've done about them and some indication of the success of those. There is a wider fostering improvement piece of work that looks at all, so this is just your recommendations, and of course wider than that is all the other work we are doing, both internally in Nottinghamshire but also across the D2M2 to improve the recruitment and retention of foster carers, the support to them, the care that children they're looking at for experience. So I wonder if now that we've brought back this recommendation report, do we, because this is an area of such passion for all of you around the room and for Councillor Green himself, that we bring an annual fostering update that brings a wider update that could talk to the performance, give some examples of what's going on and all of the ways in which we're seeking to improve, rather than just narrow on this select committee task and finish. Does that feel, I'm sort of looking around and seeing nods, but I don't know how I go about slightly altering the recommendation there, Martin.
It's not a recommendation.
Okay.
We don't have to worry about the form. We'll get it worded correctly in a minute, so that's absolutely fine.
Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Can I confirm that everything's been captured from members' point of view and have a show of hands? Lovely, thank you. Item number 9 on the agenda is the work programme. 15th of July, 11 AM, we have a meeting, a Teams meeting for the shortlisting. And then I suppose then we can at the moment there's nothing in there, is there?
We have the long list.
We've got the long list, yeah.
Yeah, we have. Sorry, obviously we had the members had the meeting with Anne and the directors last month, and then members were given the opportunity to make suggestions. About 3 weeks for the long list. We've now got a long list, so this meeting will be for the chair, vice chair, Councillor Cullen, and a member of the Conservative group. Phil is aware of the date, and we are looking for someone to attend that meeting, to actually do a short listing, and then I'll meet with Anne and colleagues to actually programme them into the year.
Wednesday morning, online.
Martin, can I just clarify, when are you referring to? What date?
I did send the details to Phil. Do you want to turn your microphone off? So it's getting a bit operational. I did send the details to Phil because I did actually Councillor Wheeler, who will be representing your group, and I was just waiting for a response. So I just had to, bear in mind of the members' availability, I just had to book the meeting, and then hopefully someone from your group will be able to attend. But
I don't think I got that email.
it was through Phil and Councillor Wheeler,
I don't think I have it.
but that's between you and them.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. When is the meeting anyway?
Thursday.
It's the 15th. 11 AM on the 15th.
Wednesday.
Yes.
1 o'clock. No, it's in the morning. It's a different, that's a different meeting. Oh, sorry.
We'll confirm that.
I read a different club all the day.
But okay, so I think that's today's meeting over. What I would say is thank you very much for your participation. It's been a super meeting. It's been my best for tenure. It's been productive. Thank you very much, and I wish you all a safe onward journey. Meeting closed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.